and Gary Harris.
Did you hear them boo you in the fourth quarter when you made that big catch?
Oh, no, they weren't booing me. That's my, they just call me who, and it just sound like that.
Alabama wide receiver Julio Jones responding to a question by a Tennessee reporter who obviously didn't know how Alabama fans cheer for their star receiver. Julio, they weren't booing him. We'll have more on Julio's big night on Rocky Top and the Tide's second half explosion coming up. But first, a little R&R for the Tide, but not for us. Good evening and welcome into a special Wednesday edition of Tider Insider TV. We couldn't be with you last night because of severe weather. Tider Insider TV, though, presented by Buffalo Rock. I'm Gary Harris, and tonight we're enjoying Mountain Dew. Well, Rodney Orr not able to be with us in person tonight, but he will join us on the phone, and we'll talk with Rodney here in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk about getting to the bye week. After 8 long weeks, Alabama is finally getting a break. It's a light week of practice with the Tide going yesterday, today, and tomorrow this week, and then they'll get to enjoy some time off with the weekend. Coach Saban says this is a week where his players have the opportunity to get treatment, heal up, and get their focus right. The coach also says his team now has to decide what they want to accomplish down the home stretch.
Do you want to participate in the rest of the season, or do you want to try to dictate and become a dominant team? But that's not going to happen just when you go out on the field. You got to do it every day. You got to prepare yourself to do it, and you have to have the right mindset and the passion to do that. And that's something that has to be there for you every day. When the game comes, everybody's going to want to win the game, but not everybody has done all the things they need to do to be able to play effectively enough to play winning football consistently enough to have success.
Well, even with a loss, the Alabama team still controls its own destiny as far as chasing the SEC championship and getting to Atlanta. And winning a national championship, well, that's not out of the picture either. Oregon, Michigan State, and Missouri all are unbeaten, but if at least 2 of those squads go down and Alabama wins out, that of course means they would knock off #1 Auburn. Then there's a possibility that a 1-loss Alabama team could play for the national championship. Maybe even if Boise State and TCU remain unbeaten, the Tide has an opportunity to jump those teams in the BCS by the end of the year. Of course, none of that is important at all if Alabama doesn't win out. The Tide has got to take care of its own business, and that means going 4-0 down the stretch, getting to Atlanta, and winning the SEC championship game. But Alabama still has 3 top 25 opponents left on the schedule: LSU, Mississippi State, and of course BCS #1 Auburn. Let me bring in Rodney Orr now to talk about Alabama in this second half push. Rodney, you know the Crimson Tide needed the bye week, much like last year, 8 games in, but now they can kind of get invigorated and get ready to take on this tough stretch. How do you see it?
Well, yeah, it's a lot like last year, Gary. I mean, as they headed into that South Carolina-Tennessee stretch last year, Alabama was a very tired football team. I think they're a bit tired this year, but one thing that they weren't last year that they are this year is they're a bit beat up. And obviously this time off will give Marcel Darius, Courtney Upshaw, Daquan Minzy, possibly DJ Fluker, guys like that time to heal and, get ready hopefully for the stretch run.
Well, there is good news going into the bye week, Rodney, and that is Alabama really in the second half hit on all cylinders again offensively against Tennessee. You go back to the second half of the Florida game, and the Tide offense had struggled a little bit, quite frankly, not getting as many points as it needed to get, drive stalling, McElroy taking sacks, but 28-0 over UT in the second half, and really the offense hit on all cylinders. They threw the ball down the field. They got completions. The running game opened up. Ingram and Richardson had those lanes to run through. The offensive line looked like they were really excited to be blocking again, and it looked like the Alabama that we've become accustomed to under Nick Saban.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. The one thing that maybe Alabama hasn't done well this year is get the ball in the hands of their playmakers. For the first time, they really got the ball in the hands of Julio Jones down the field. Marquise Mays made some plays. He had 4 catches in addition to Julio's 12, and the running game with Richardson and Ingram really rolling. Trent, of course, going over 100 yards, and Ingram having 88 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Both those guys had 2 touchdowns. So, again, they spread the ball around and used all the playmakers, and that's what made them so effective.
Of course, Rodney, some would say that it could be a case of fool's gold, meaning that Tennessee's defense is mediocre, obviously, but how do you see that? How do you view that? Was it a case of Alabama being really good or the Vols being really bad?
Well, I mean, in the first half, Alabama couldn't take advantage of it against Tennessee's defense, so I think it was just really, quite honestly, I think it was a matter of Alabama's offense going out and executing and doing what it has to do. And I think if Alabama's offense does what they have to do, regardless of the opponent, that you'll see things such as we saw in the second half. So I really don't necessarily believe that it was that Tennessee's that bad, though obviously they're not, the greatest defense in the SEC by any stretch. But still, I think more credit should go to Alabama's execution offensively.
Rodney, let's talk Julio Jones. I mean, he's received some criticism, and frankly, he's dropped some balls that you don't expect a marquee receiver to drop. But, he hurt his hand in the South Carolina game. He toughed it out the rest of that game, actually fractured it, had surgery following that game, played a half against Ole Miss, and then last week told Coach Saban, hey, listen, I want to do everything in practice. I want to block, I want to take hits. And then he went out there against Tennessee and had the best game of his career, made some incredible catches, and really, I think, have people excited about what he might do over this final stretch of the season.
Yeah, Gary, we've kind of been waiting for that kind of performance from Julio Jones, and I think that when you look at it, it was probably his best performance since his freshman year. That's off the top of my head. Just trying to look back at it, and I think we saw the Julio Jones that we saw early in his career, and he was outstanding, with his hands and consistent. Really, the only pass he dropped, Gary, I thought he caught the ball. If you remember down at the 1 yard line, I thought that should have probably been overturned.
He did catch it. I mean, the replay showed clearly why, it didn't go to a booth replay. I have no idea. It's funny how when Alabama makes a play that it seems like the booth replay would help it, never gets to the booth. But a great game for him, 12 catches, 221 yards. 221 yards, a school record. Well, stick around, Rodney. We're going to talk to you some more, and you folks stick around on this Wednesday night edition of TITV. Coming up, Alabama basketball coach Anthony Grant landed a big-name prospect on Tuesday to round out what is becoming a great recruiting class. We'll have that for you. Also, we will take your phone calls and your emails, and Rodney will be available to answer your recruiting questions on the telephone. So go ahead and dial in like you always do, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. We'll be back with more Tiger Insider TV presented by Buffalo Rock right after this. More TITV in just a moment. But first, I want to talk to you about one of my favorite places, Nuke's Express Cafe, 205 University Boulevard in East. Yesterday I had to go make a school visit, and then before I came into the television station, I stopped by Nuke's for lunch, and I have to tell you, I really felt like a celebrity because people were coming up to me left and right saying, man, we see you do the Nuke's commercials. We're glad that you turned us on to Nuke's because we love it. And then they said, and you really do eat here, don't you? I said, all the time. Why not? Because it's great. Whether it's an oven-toasted sandwich, a California-style pizza, or a hand-tossed salad, everything is made with fresh ingredients. And check out one of their soups. They change the soup menu every day. 4 different soups, and they are terrific. They got a beer and wine menu. Call them for your catering needs, 758-2455. And don't forget the dessert menu featuring cakes, brownies, and Rice Krispie treats. Nuke's Express Cafe, 205 University Boulevard East in Tuscaloosa. And it is now time to talk basketball. The season's right around the corner. And, Nick Saban came in here with one mission, and that was to restore Alabama to a championship caliber in football. Well, make no mistake, the University of Alabama isn't paying Anthony Grant nearly $2 million a year because they feel like it. They expect similar results from him, and it all starts with recruiting. We know that, and Coach Grant is putting together a terrific recruiting class. Yesterday, another top prospect, power forward Nick Jacobs out of South Atlanta High School, 6'8", 255 pounds. He is a terrific player. He is the 4th commitment for the class of 2011, and we will talk more about the other guys in a moment. But Jacobs chose Alabama over Clemson, Florida, and in-state Georgia. He is a big pickup for the Tide. And recruiting, as we know, always is a continuing process, a very fluid situation. What about 2013? I know it seems like it's a long way away, but Shannon Hell, a sophomore power forward from Johnson City, Tennessee, 6'7", 205 pounds, has already committed to the Tide. He's at Science Hill High School there, and to give you an idea how highly thought of he is, North Carolina recruiting site broke the story on Shannon Hill. North Carolina very seriously interested in recruiting this young man, but he says his commitment is firm and that he does plan on signing with the Tide in a couple of years. We talked about the 2011 class. In addition to Jacobs, you've got Musa Gai, the 7-foot junior college center out of Lakeland Community College, Rodney Cooper and Levi Randolph, a couple of 6'5", 6'6" type guards, shooters from in-state, along with Nick Jacobs. So it's been a very fine year for Anthony Grant, and he may not be done yet in recruiting. All right, coming up, we're going to take some phone calls and get to some emails. Rodney Orr is standing by to answer your recruiting questions and more. Give us a ring at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us, TITV@WVUATV.com. We want to talk to you when we come back on Tider Insider TV, the Wednesday night edition.